What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Alpha Protocol, the sort of wonderful mess that is the spy RPG from Obsidian that originally released back in 2010. When you hear people talk about Alpha Protocol, a few things come to mind. That it handled choice and consequence especially well, and also that the game is very, very buggy. These days, at the end of 2022, it's probably worth mentioning out of the gate that the first issue you're actually going to have with this game is likely acquiring it anymore. It was pulled from servers back in 2019 after some music licenses expired, and thus it is not available for sale anymore. You are not without options if you still want to try it out, however. There is, of course, just straight up piracy, but also the fact that the game saw a physical release for both PC and consoles, so you aren't completely out of options, but it can be a little difficult to get your hands on, provided you don't already own it. But when you actually fire up the game to play it, you're met with a few difficulty options that are a little strange, mostly because they're not well explained, but that becomes a bit of a running theme throughout the game. You choose your normal difficulties, easy, normal, hard, that kind of stuff, and then you pick a sort of starting loadout, which is the starting point for your character, what they're good at, but then you also have recruit and veteran. Recruit makes you start the game with 0 skill points, so you're good at absolutely nothing, which makes the beginning of the game rather difficult. And then once you beat the game on recruit, you can start the game on veteran, which gives you rank 3 in everything right out of the gate, which is kind of bizarre because that's not like a god mode, that's just an average amount of skill investment in everything. It just sort of lets you start as a jack of all trades, which is a curious decision. But once you actually get the game going, the plot is relatively interesting. A passenger plane is shot down by ill-gotten missiles, and you become part of Alpha Protocol, attempting to track down what happened and how you can stop it. Alpha Protocol is a government agency that is both allowed to do essentially whatever they want, as they are deemed a rogue organization, that they have no official ties to anything. But this just gives them the freedom to investigate things without all the red tape, as the game likes to put it. And this is kind of where things get interesting, because the thing that Alpha Protocol is known for is a wild amount of freedom in approach to its story, sometimes to the game's own detriment, down to things like how you talk to people, the order in which you approach missions, how you approach those missions, the choices you make during those missions, which can lead to some pretty drastic changes playthrough to playthrough, which is pretty wildly ambitious, and because of this, it has its fair share of problems, which puts Alpha Protocol in this weird situation of giving you a ton of things to enjoy, while simultaneously handing you things that don't work about those things at the same time. But I think the most prominent example of this is that the enemies are incredibly inconsistent, let's say. Apparently this was part of the development. They had to scale back a lot of what they had planned for the enemies, and as a result, a lot of them are just really dumb, and they don't even seem to react to things in a uniform manner. Sometimes you can kill an enemy right in front of someone and they don't even seem to notice. Other times you shoot somebody and enemies will teleport to you from across the map. In one of the tutorial areas where you're just knocking a few people out, I knocked out one guard, got seen by a second, and like 3 or 4 other guards teleported to the location, which was really weird. Not to mention that the aiming reticle is just god-awful. This is to account for some RNG and make it more RPG-like, I guess, so a little less skill-based. Every weapon you use has a potential area that it can shoot in, so it can be difficult to accurately hit anything, even with training in those weapons, though there are skills and things that will help mitigate this. But that's just combat stuff. Even when you look at some of the other adjacent systems, they are interesting, if a little touchy. The hacking minigame is a bit of a nightmare. You kind of get the hang of it after a little bit, but all of these moving numbers when you're trying to move sections of numbers onto other numbers just makes for a lot of visual clutter that's honestly just hard to look at. Although you can ironically use EMP grenades to just completely bypass stuff like that. But the truly remarkable thing about this is that it somehow still manages to be fun most of the time. And while there are definitely bugs and things like that that are more frustrating than anything else, but even outside of the bugs, there are some things that I'm pretty sure are working intentionally that are still just weird. For instance, you have limited time to reply to conversation options. However, the conversation options you have to choose from don't even tell you really what you're going to say. It's just like 1 or 2 word descriptors. So in addition to not really knowing what you're going to say, you're on a time limit to pick the thing that you don't even know what it is. But at the same time, that's weighted against other systems that feel like really good ideas. There is an entire reputation system, however, someone liking you or disliking you isn't inherently bad. There are benefits to either or. In some situations, somebody disliking you might actually help you out, and in other instances, it could, of course, hurt you. But to kind of wrap up my first impressions and not ramble on too long, Alpha Protocol is a great example of being a little too ambitious, probably. There are just tons of systems, not all of them really work all that well, and in just a few hours, I don't think I've encountered a single part of this game that hasn't had some sort of minor bug happen, or just be presented in a really strange way. And yet, at the same time, it still manages to be very compelling because there's so much freedom and choice given to you, the player, in how you approach a lot of these things, which makes it a bit of a difficult game to sum up. But luckily, I will have plenty of time to think about that as I move to review the title, as there are a couple of other new games releasing this week that I'll be focusing on first. I just wanted to get this impressions video out of the way as I play through this game multiple times, see what's what, and actually go to review it, though you likely won't see it for a few weeks at least. But here at the beginning, it's a weird mix of terribly executed good ideas, I guess is how I would put it. And because of that, I'm looking forward to playing through it more. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.